that raised concerns on the part of retailers, the people who employ the retail clerks. We were ultimately able to agree on amendments which the retailers accepted, saying we will use essentially the latest technology which pops this stuff up automatically. In other words, it identifies when something is barcode scanned, so that there is that information, but we removed the language which prohibited any discipline by the retailer, the employer. The retail clerks were also concerned that they not be in a place where an inadvertent mistake turned into a criminal violation, even though it is only an infraction pursuant to the bill. So what we have done is taken language in the bill that says that an infraction won't be, a sale made in error will not be deemed an infraction or a violation unless, and I'm going to read from the digest of the bill because I think that does a nice job of summarizing, this is on page 1 of SB 514, unless the retail clerk is a willful participant in an ongoing criminal conspiracy to violate the provisions prohibiting the sale of dextromethorphan to minors. In other words, if you're really planning to do this and you're engaged in a criminal enterprise and it's an interaction to sell this product to folks, then you are in fact liable for the infraction under the terms of the bill. But if there's an inadvertent error, then you are not likely to be charged with an infraction given the language of the bill. The goal was to strike some balance on both these issues.
Thank you.
Anything further, members? Then the Secretary will call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Cannella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe.
Aye.
Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Simonian. Aye. Steinberg. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee, aye.
That is ayes 37, noes 0. The measure passes. Members, we will return to file item 134 from Committee on Banking. Senator Vargas, do you want to take that up? That will pass on file. That brings us to 135. Senator Lowenthal, you prepared to take that up? File item 135, SB 568. We'll pass that. Senator Lowenthal, you have the next one also, file item 136. And the Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 827 by Senator Lowenthal, an act relating to pupil data.
Senator Lowenthal, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, SB 827 is a modest but yet an important measure that creates a 23-member advisory committee to provide the legislature and the governor with recommendations on the future of CalPADS, which is the California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System. This advisory committee would be public with varied representation, including parents, teachers, and school administrators. The committee would be charged to advise both the legislature and the governor on the ability of the state's CalPADS system to serve both local, state, and federal public data needs and the compliance which we're required to do, as well as the necessary steps to expand CalPADS as part of a more comprehensive data system. The legislature, by establishing CalPADS, has determined a fundamental need for longitudinal student data systems and has invested its limited available federal funds towards this end. There is no opposition to this bill and has not received any no votes so far, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Discussion, members? Any discussion? Senator Dutton.
Yeah, just
certainly not opposed to the bill. I'm actually supporting it, but there's already 3 other committees. In fact, I think the governor's actually proposed one too.
Right.
Now we've got another one.
Well, this has come out of that committee. These were the recommendations to have
the
this. Right.
recommendations
This
that-
came out of that committee.
Thank you.
Anything further, members? Senate, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, is there objections to a unanimous roll call? Call the roll, please.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. No. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Tedlu. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee. Aye. Okay. Correa. Aye. Emerson. Aye.
Ayes 33, noes 1. The measure passes. Next item is file item 137. The secretary will read.
Senate Bill 53 by Senator Calderon, enacting to real estate licensees.
Senator Calderon.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, today I present to you SB 53, which is also authored by my esteemed colleague, Senator Vargas. SB 53 makes 8 different sets of changes to California's real estate law to give the Department of Real Estate more enforcement tools to crack down against licensees and unlicensed persons who are violating real estate law. This bill is supported by the California Association of Realtors, the California Mortgage Association, and the Escrow Institute of California. Here's a few of the bill's highlights. Early warning to the public about real estate licensees that are engaging in serious harm to the public. An end to automatic renewal of licenses when a licensee is under investigation for having violated the real estate law. Citation and fine authority, which gives GRE an efficient way to sanction licensees for relatively minor violations of the law and allows the department to focus more of its enforcement resources on serious violators. And finally, reporting of escrow activities by real estate licensees that perform large amounts of escrows. There's no opposition to this measure. I ask for your aye support.
Discussion, members? Seeing none, we will call the roll. The secretary will call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon.
Aye.
Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Tedlu. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee. Aye. Correa. Aye.
Ayes 36.
Dutton. Aye.
Ayes 37, no 0. The measure passes. Next is file item 138. Senator Pavley. The secretary will read.
Senate Bill 170 by Senator Pavley, enacting to air pollution.
Senator Pavley.
Yes, thank you very much, members. Many of California's local air districts, such as South Coast or the Bay Area, or even the San Joaquin Valley, make grant funds available to private industry and academia for the research, development, and commercialization of clean air technologies, and many of these have been quite successful. Senate Bill 170 simply seeks to clarify that local air districts may, and the operative word is may, negotiate revenue-sharing agreements with grant recipients. When private investors grant money to new technologies, they expect a share of the revenue if the technology ever becomes commercialized. State fee payers should get this same benefit. There is a 5-year sunset on the bill so that the program may be evaluated and hopefully extended. Local air districts will put any generated revenues back into sponsoring additional research or achieving further reductions in diesel and toxic emissions and provide greater health impact protection to communities. We've seen programs like this operate successfully before in California. The California Institute for Regenerative Medicine regarding stem cells, they do the same thing. Also, the California Energy Commission's Public Interest Research Demonstration and Development Program, also known as PEER, are prime examples of what air districts hope to achieve. I respectfully ask for your aye vote in this important air quality measure.
Discussion, members? Any discussion? Seeing none. Senator Wright.
The question as the author.
Senator Pavley, would you care to take a question from Senator Wright?
Absolutely.
Senator Wright, please go right ahead.
I was reading the announcement. Where does the money come from that pays for the things that they're doing?
It's on fees that are already established. I think it's on your vehicle registration fee. They get $1 or something like that a year.
So it's not an additional cost?
No additional fee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wright. Anyone else? Then, without further hesitation, the Secretary will call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. No. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Calderon. Aye. Canella. No. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. No. Evans. Aye. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe.
Aye.
Aye. Lamalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Runner. No. Smidian. Steinberg. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. No. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee aye. Smidian aye. Correa aye.
Ayes 24, noes 14. The measure passes. We're at file item 139. Senator Emerson, the Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 211 by Senator Emerson, enacting air pollution.
Thank you, Madam President and members. The mandatory underinflated tire program requires automotive service providers to inflate their customers' tires using a tire pressure gauge that must be accurate within a range of 2 pounds per square inch. SB 211 simply codifies this requirement into law. By placing these standards into law, it will provide the industry with some surety on this matter. This is important because these standards were so significant compromise between the industry and the Air Resources Board. Businesses in California need better predictability from our government, and this bill is intended to achieve that. This bill is supported by virtually every business affected by the regulation, including tire centers, the New Car Dealers Association, tire manufacturers, and others, and I ask for your aye vote on this matter.
Any discussion, members? Any discussion? Is there any objection to a unanimous roll call? Any objection? Then it is 39-0, and the measure passes. Next is file item 140, Senator Carol Lieu. Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 309 by Senator Lieu, enacting to care facilities.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill has had no votes and has no fiscal impact. SB 309 would give youth with disabilities the choice to participate in daycare programs with peers rather than prematurely transition to an adult program. Historically, students with disabilities have been allowed to remain in licensed after-school programs with minors until the age of 22. Only recently has this process been changed due to concerns about an inconsistency in the law. Adding the adult license requirement at a youth site increases cost the provider and most likely the provider cannot accommodate, and especially in light of the recent cuts to programs. If youth cannot attend after-school programs, they may be placed in one-on-one supervision, which is much more expensive for the state and not preferred by youth with disabilities or their families. SB 309 will allow disabled youth to gain independence and skills in their lives to become more fully included as members in society in both work and home, and I ask for your support on this bill.
Discussion, members? Any discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to a unanimous roll call? Any objection? Seeing none, then the vote is 39-0. The measure passes. Next is file item 141, Senator Yee. Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 326 by Senator Yee, enacting to courts.
Senator Yee.
Thank you very much, Madam President and Senators. Delay in access to case-initiating court records are a big problem in California, while some courts provide timely same-day access to these documents. Many do not, and that severely undermines the public's ability to oversee a public court system. So what this bill will do is to provide much-needed transparency to the issue, and what we have been working with rather closely with the opposition is an attempt to reach an amicable resolution. I have limited the scope of the documents to address our opponent's concern, and the most recent amendments include having the rule of court limited to only those superior courts that have fully implemented the California case management system. I have reservations on predicating something on the full implementation of CCMS, as there are obvious problems within CCMS. I've accepted this amendment for now for the purpose of continuing the discussion with the administrative offices of the courts, and hopefully this will help provide much needed transparency. With that, urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Members, any discussion? Any discussion on file item 141? Any objection to a unanimous roll call? Any objection? Then the vote is 38-0, and the item passes. Next, we have file item 142. Senator Emerson, the Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 431 by Senator Emerson, enacting to pharmacies.
Senator Emerson.
Thank you, Madam President and members. SB 431 will increase consumer protection and ensure the proper disposal of prescription drugs. This bill clarifies that reverse distributors will be responsible for handling prescription drugs that have not been dispensed to patients but are being removed from the pharmaceutical supply. It does not address the issue of drugs that patients have partially used, and we're continuing to work with the reverse distributors on that issue. Senate Bill 431 will add provisions that will reduce the time required for the board to investigate a licensee if there is evidence of drug theft or impairment. This bill also prohibits an individual whose pharmacist license has been revoked in California from working in another state as a pharmacist who still dispenses medications to California via the mail. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this important consumer protection measure.
Any discussion, members? Any discussion? Seeing none, is there objection to a unanimous roll call? Any objection? You're not objecting? No. Then we will, the vote will be 38-0. The bill passes. Next is file item 143, Senator Dutton. Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 446 by Senator Dutton, enacting to airports.
Senator Dutton.
Yeah, Madam President and members, this bill would establish the framework for transferring operation of the Ontario Airport from the City of Los Angeles to the Ontario Airport Authority. Greater local involvement with the Ontario Airport is essential to the airport and the region's economic growth. The airport is underutilized resource. With stronger community buy-in, the airport can become a hub of economic activity and helping to bring jobs to a much-needed jobs to the Inland Empire. This bill has received bipartisan support from the Inland Empire Caucus, many of whom are co-authors, and has received no votes. I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Discussion, members? Any discussion? Oh, Senator Lowenthal?
Question for the author.
Senator Dutton, will you take a question from Senator Lowenthal?
Absolutely. This is not my first bill, though. Okay.
Senator
This is not
Lowenthal.
what?
My first bill.
Oh, are you a new member?
Sometimes I feel like it.
Can you tell me, this really impacts the city of Los Angeles. Do they have a position on the bill?
I've actually had meetings with them. They're not necessarily opposed, but they aren't totally in favor. We're still working out details. This was proposed as a vehicle to help arrange for discussions to take place. I've actually been personally involved in these efforts before. When in the past it's been the City of Ontario trying to operate by itself, that isn't a viable option. What is a viable option is to provide a more regional approach to this, and at least with my personal discussions with the LAX, they've indicated a desire to want to see if this is feasible and possible.
So in answering that, you've had discussions with them. They are not in support or in opposition.
Correct.
Formally. Thank you.
Further debate or discussion? Further debate or discussion? Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. Another question for the author. Very reluctant to support this bill today, echoing some of Senator Lowenthal's concerns and red flags have been raised. But I think part of an important context here for this body to consider is history. Ontario Airport, obviously in the city of Ontario, so how did it come to be that this airport is owned and operated by a departmental entity of the city of Los Angeles as opposed to the city of Ontario to begin with?
The City of Ontario, back in 1985, the Ontario Airport was going through a process of becoming a larger presence in goods movement as well as passengers. It long time had been a secondary airport for LAX in the event of bad weather because our days of fog and so forth were less than the city of Los Angeles. In 1985, there was also a pretty significant recession going on into the area. LA was thought to be a better person at that time to help secure federal financing and other things for lengthening the runway. A purchase was a sale of the property, or the operation was from the city of Ontario to LAX back in 1985.
Okay, so it was sort of a financial deal, infrastructure investment that as times have changed, the leadership of Ontario seemed to have changed opinion on what may be best for the city and for the surrounding areas.
Yeah, the region itself has changed, and now it's felt that it's time to look at the next step. But it will take a regional airport authority, which is kind of also what's happened in other places in the state, and so that's the reason for going forward to try to help all parties come to a mutually beneficial arrangement.
And the need to have this conversation, the need to create a new authority versus using the currently existing Los Angeles County Airport Authority. Can you address that?
Yeah, the reason why is because over the years what's happened is there doesn't seem to be a great deal of local support with regards to the use of the airport, because it's felt that there is no perception or reality that there doesn't seem to be any feeling within the community, surrounding community, that the Los Angeles Airport Authority is really a priority, Ontario, and what happens for Ontario in its future. So it's felt that by creating a regional airport authority, which would be cities that surround the Ontario airport itself, that it would provide a stronger community buy-in to the operations of the airport, and therefore be more of a beneficial to the region economically, because they will have a greater voice in the operation of the airport.
And is there outlined roles and responsibilities for this authority? Should it be created
short of an actual sale or transfer of ownership of the airport.
Absolutely. That's one of the requirements that are here, is that under the agreement, the City of Los Angeles will still have control over it, but this would provide the mechanism by which to create a mutually acceptable transfer of operations.
Would it be advisory only or binding?
Well, those will be actually, there are some existing bonds on the property at this time, about, I don't remember what the total dollars, I think it's around $80 million. Certainly if there was to be an actual transfer of ownership, that would have to be made arrangements, and the airport still has a responsibility for maintaining or servicing that debt. I think where the real concern is actually in the operation. The perception now is that the Ontario airport is basically being used and is being held back to benefit Los Angeles airport. Like I said, that may or may not be reality, but the fact is the local communities just don't feel that they have a strong enough involvement. And in my meetings with the representatives from Los Angeles Airport Authority, they weren't necessarily opposed to this. They just want to make sure that it's economically feasible and a viable transfer.
Oh, I appreciate they may not have a formal position as of yet. Thank you for the answers to my questions. My concerns begin with recognizing that prior to the more recent recession, we were actually not doing too poorly there at Ontario Airport. When I was on the City Council prior to my election to the legislature, there was actually a series of announcements of new flight operations coming in and out of Ontario, both passenger and cargo. So I think the economic opportunities were certainly beginning to be fulfilled. The job creation opportunities for the surrounding communities were in a positive direction. I'd hate to rush to judgment on such a significant issue, such as the governance over a major airport in the Los Angeles area based on a temporary recession that we find ourselves in. That's number one. Number two, there's an existing Los Angeles County Airport Authority whose mission and purpose is to try to resolve some of these outstanding issues, given the number of airports with differing jurisdictions or authorities in the greater Los Angeles area. So I'm still not comfortable enough supporting this bill. Wanted to highlight these dynamics to my colleagues, especially those colleagues representing the Los Angeles area. Thank you.
Further debate or discussion? Further debate or discussion? Senator Dutton, would you like to close?
Yes, Mr. President. Like I said before, this bill actually just sets up a mechanism for the continued discussions and conversations regarding the future of this airport. It doesn't force anything. It just provides for a vehicle to be able to let talks continue. And so I would appreciate an opportunity to keep going forward with this, and I would respectfully request an aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Desaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. No. Pavley. Price. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian.
Aye.
Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee. Aye.
Call the absent members.
Berryhill. De Leon. Ted Lieu. Lowenthal. Pavley. Price.
Ayes 33, noes 1. The bill is passed. Members, we are at file item 144. Senator Vargas. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 469 by Senator Vargas, enacting to land use.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, today I would like to present to you Senate Bill 469. SB 469 requires an economic impact analysis to be completed by a city or county before a supercenter retail store can be approved. The cost of the study would be paid for by the permit applicant, not the taxpayers. The goal of this bill is to give local planning authorities during the permitting process the opportunity to learn about the full economic impact that a proposed superstore will have on the community's small and neighborhood businesses, the jobs, property values, public services, tax revenues, traffic, and Main Street business districts. Nothing in SB 469 would prevent any community from deciding for themselves whether or not to build a supercenter. This bill would simply ensure that those decisions are made based on factual analysis of the economic impact. I've heard from some of the detractors of the bill that this bill would somehow kill jobs. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the studies that we've seen, these supercenters, when they come in, they're the ones that actually destroy jobs. And they create jobs that pay less with less benefits, and at the same time, they lower the standard so much for many of their employees that they have to seek Medicaid and other services from the government. The notion is that you don't shop at some of these stores, you shop there anyway because your taxes go to pay for their social services. SB 469 is supported by the California Small Business Association, the Neighborhood Market Association, and Small Business California, among other organizations. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Members, is there debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Senator Weiland.
Yes, Mr. President, members, I rise in opposition to this bill, primarily because this bill discriminates against one type of retailer, but not others. So if you're a membership retailer, which in theory could have the same economic impact, you're not included in this bill. This bill doesn't include you. It defines you out. So if we looked at those who benefit the most from these retailers, who have relatively lower incomes, if they can afford the membership fee, then they don't have to worry about this bill. But if they can't afford it, they're the ones who makes it much more difficult for them to benefit. I think it's also interesting when we look at support and opposition. Opposition also includes the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, California Retailers Association, the Latin Business Association, League of California Cities. So there's lots of opposition to this, which includes small businesses. I urge a no vote.
Is there further debate or discussion? Senator Cannella.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this bill as well. And it's not for the commentary that Senator Vargas put on whether a supercenter is good or bad for a community. It actually has to do with local control. I was a former mayor of my city of Ceres, and I know a lot of you came from local government as well, and really one size does not fit all when it comes to our communities. We elect people who make decisions based on what's best for that particular community, and I think this bill takes away from that local control and basically mandates a one-size-fits-all. And I just think that's bad policy. I really think that we should leave it up to the locals because I haven't seen evidence that the local officials have done a bad job when it comes to determining what's best for their community. So again, I think we should leave that decision made to the local representatives who really are with their citizens every day and understand what they think is best. So I urge a no vote.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Harman, to be followed by Senator Huff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've received a letter of opposition from the Association of California Cities, Orange County, and let me just cite a couple of facts that they talk about. My colleague just a moment ago talked about local control. They assert it's a direct assault on local control land use authority by requiring economic reports for large format stores. And the bill specifically targets superstores that are over 90,000 square feet with 10% total floor area devoted to selling non-taxable food items. But it carves out an exemption for discount warehouses that sell practically the same thing. This bill is targeted at the wrong type of employers at the wrong time. This is a time when California is experiencing unemployment rates of what, 11% is it now? I just urge my colleagues to think about this. We want to do things that create jobs, that help businesses, that help large businesses hire people, that'll pay taxes, that'll help solve our revenue problems that we have here in Sacramento. I encourage you to vote no.
Senator Huff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've commented before that decisions we make here can have both a positive impact or a negative impact. Sometimes the results are unanticipated, sometimes they're exactly what we want, but let's consider some of these. The author has told us some of the things he would like to see: higher benefits, higher wages. But let's look at some of the other backdrop here. We're currently coming out of a recession, and in so doing, we're struggling to create jobs. We're struggling to make our hard dollars stretch. So the question is, does this legislation help people's money go farther, or does it make people's money, they have to spend more to get the same amount of thing? I would argue that it'll result in higher prices because you're requiring more regulations, more hoops to jump through, and indeed you're creating a disincentive for some of the efficiencies achieved by an economy of scale. We have become a leader among nations, really, when it comes to global warming greenhouse gases. I don't happen to subscribe to all of that, but I know the majority of you do. And we tout that we want to lower our carbon footprint. So we have envisioned bills such as SB 375 and others that encourage smart growth. We want people to be walking more. In here, you have stores in which one can walk to their automotive goods, they can walk and get their pharmacy goods, they can walk and get their groceries, they can get their personal cosmetics. They can basically go to one place and walk and get all of this stuff. And so the question then becomes, does this expand our carbon footprint or lower our carbon footprint if this bill passes? I would argue this bill would increase our carbon footprint, as people would have to go to more places. Not everybody has public transit, can drop them conveniently off at one place. Many of us in this room came from local government. You remember what it was like when the state issued mandates without any money to pay for them. But remember back when you received those and how you felt about that, because this is what we would be doing. Does this bill create a mandate to local government? Absolutely. We would be telling them from top down how they have to come up with this economic impact report. And in so doing, we don't actually give them money because they have the ability to raise taxes or fees themselves to pay for this. So we're giving them a responsibility. We're not sending funding with it. We make them be the bad guys and pay the cost for this by raising fees. And then also recently, CEO Magazine subscribed to something many of us have said. Many of the reports say the same thing, that California has the absolute worst business climate in the nation. Now, we can sit back and struggle with that and accept it and embrace it, or we can try to change that. Does this bill help us to become more friendly to business, to creating jobs? Or does this bill take us in the other direction to where we continue our downward spiral? If there was 52 or 53, we would probably do that. We're 51 because they count District of Columbia in there. I would argue that this bill, by creating more hurdles, makes it less business friendly, even though it's hard to get lower than 51st. Let's think about all the things involved in this. This is certainly not a good bill for those struggling economically. The people that shop in facilities like this are those who want to stretch their dollars as far as they can. It allows them to go to one place and get all of their needs. It allows them to get cheap medication and things under one roof along with their groceries. It also has a positive impact in our local government. Let's let the communities decide what's best for them rather than us deciding. I ask for your no vote.
Is there further debate or discussion? Senator Blakesley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, briefly, the heart of this legislation is, of course, the requirement of an economic assessment, which includes some of the following: an assessment of the effect on shares of retail sales in the market area, assessment on the effect of supply and demand for retail space, an assessment of employment effects, including 4 specific topics, and it goes on and on and on economic impact reports that would be required of business. I find it ironic, having served in Senate EQ, that there are almost a dozen bills that were brought forward that required an economic assessment of the impact on regulation on business, and each and every one of them were killed. but this body apparently does have appetite for economic impact assessment if it could potentially be used to disadvantage someone who's trying to create jobs. I find the irony of that fact worth noting, and I would urge a no vote as we struggle to try and bring this economy back and perhaps bring some common sense back to the regulatory environment.
Further debate or discussion? Further debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Vargas, you may close.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, colleagues, for the lively discussion. I appreciate it. The first thing I would note, I guess, is that I thought for a second maybe my friends on the other side were going to steal this bill from me because they are the ones that are always asking for the economic impact assessment. We're certainly giving them what they want here, and then they're saying, no, no, no. That's exactly the thing you keep asking for, and I think it's appropriate. That's why we're here. Interestingly, the whole issue of local control. This bill says that the locals get to make the decision. However, they get to make an informed decision because they will have the facts. Everyone talks about the number of jobs that these superstores create. They don't talk about the number of jobs that they destroy. There's a net loss of jobs when these gigantic centers come in. I also find interesting the whole notion that these large super centers create walkable communities to decrease the carbon footprint. That's a good one. I mean, they are the antithesis of a walking community. I mean, try to walk to one of these superstores and you'll get killed trying to cross the street, for God's sakes. So that happens to be a red herring. Now, the issue of membership stores, I think it is important to talk about that for a second. The impact study that I'm asking for is important in this sense. There are stores that are large that do pay a livable wage, where you don't have then the transfer of people going from a job that pays enough for them to have benefits and also to support their family to a job that doesn't, and then they rely on the government for Medicaid and these other services. So again, we're looking at those large membership stores. They do pay a living wage, and that's why this bill does not address them. For all those reasons, I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist, aye. Anderson, no. Berryhill, Blakesley, no. Calderon, Canella, no. Corbett, aye. Correa, aye. De Leon, aye. DeSaulnier, Dutton, no. Emerson, no. Evans, aye. Fuller, no. Gaines, no. Hancock, aye. Harmon, no. Hernandez, aye. Huff, no. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa, no. Leno, aye. Ted Lieu, aye. Carol Lieu, aye. Lowenthal, aye. Negrete McLeod, aye. Padilla, Pavley, aye. Price, Rubio, Runner, no. Smidian,
aye.
Aye. Steinberg, aye. Strickland, no. Vargas, aye. Walters, no. Wolk, aye. Wright, Wyland, no. Yee, aye.
Call the absent members.
Berryhill, Calderon, DeSaulnier, Padilla, Price, Rubio, Wright. Padilla, aye.
Mr. Secretary, please call the absent members.
Berryhill, Calderon, DeSaulnier, aye. Price, Rubio, Wright.
Ayes 21, noes 14. The bill is passed. Members, that takes us to file item 145. File item 145. Senator Price, are you prepared to take up this item? Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 473 by Senator Price, enacting to pupils.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 473 requires school districts to include in the annual report on dropouts information as to whether or not they currently operate a dropout recovery program. According to the California Research Dropout Project, every year 120,000 students who reach the age of 20 without a high school diploma cost California over $46 billion in lower incomes, increased crimes, higher spending on health care and welfare over their lifetime. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to California's dropout crisis. I believe that it's vital to California's future that we address this issue and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Is there debate or discussion, members? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, members, is there any objection to substituting our unanimous roll call on this item? If not, ayes 39, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 146, Senator Padilla. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 550 by Senator Padilla, enacting to business.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, SB 550 would strengthen protections against music and video piracy by
Senator
allowing
Padilla, one moment, please. Members. One moment, please, Senator Padilla. Senator Padilla, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, this is SB 550, which would strengthen protections against music and video piracy by affording law enforcement authorities powers to verify compliance with existing laws. There's existing law in California dating back to 1998, authored by then Assembly member Kevin Murray, that puts in place requirements for those companies, those businesses who are in the replicating business, the folks who manufacture the very CDs and DVDs that are used to sell music, movies, etc. Unfortunately, with the current laws on the books, there are still significant incidents of piracy in California throughout the country. In fact, last year alone, there were more than 820,000 illegal discs that were seized by law enforcement authorities in our state alone. Not only hurtful to the industry, but hurtful to state and local government as well. A 2007 report estimated the fiscal impact to state and local governments of Los Angeles County alone to the tune of $500 million. This is above and beyond the economic impact to the industry, economic impact to artists, and all other people who work in the entertainment industry. So clearly it means a loss to California jobs and a competitive disadvantage to legitimate retailers. What this bill would do to help enforce the laws and requirements that are on the books, it would increase fines for violations of the law on a first offense from $500 to a minimum of $2,500. Increases the fines from the current $5,000 for a second offense to a minimum of $25,000 for a second offense. It would also allow specialized law enforcement officers the ability to conduct a warrantless inspection of commercial optical disc replicators, products, parts, and equipment for the purposes of verifying compliance with existing law and specifically limited to normal business hours. I know that there's some folks who have expressed a concern about a Fourth Amendment exemption, allowing this warrantless seizure. It was the subject of a lengthy discussion in the Public Safety Committee where we took amendments to address this very issue and concern. And I firmly believe that this bill passes legal and constitutional muster by meeting the requirements called for in the by the Fourth Amendment, where warrantless search and seizures can be allowed when they are, number one, narrowly tailored, and number two, meet a substantial state interest. So to address the narrowly tailored criteria, we've written the bill in a way that it only applies to law enforcement officers whose primary responsibility is this specific area, cracking down on piracy concerns. Number two, how do we meet the threshold for substantial state interest? Well, I think most people would agree that the entertainment industry is a uniquely significant industry to the California economy, number one. And number two, the replicator industry is also heavily concentrated in California, Southern California to be specific. This bill is supported by industry as well as the city of Los Angeles and has no opposition on record. I ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion, colleagues? Members, is there any debate or discussion? Senator Gaines.
Yeah, question of the author, please.
Padilla, are you prepared to accept the question?
I'm prepared.
Proceed.
I'd just like some clarification, if I could, in reference to potential violation of the Fourth Amendment with regards to your bill here?
Thank you, Senator Gaines, for the question. As I began to mention during my presentation, we're very cognizant of Fourth Amendment questions and concerns. It was the very topic of conversation in Public Safety Committee. Federal law allows exemptions to the Fourth Amendment when there's a couple of findings that are put in place. Number one, that measures that allow for warrantless searches are narrowly tailored, number one. Number two, that there's a substantial state interest for granting a warrantless seizure authority. I believe this bill meets those thresholds on the first case of being narrowly crafted. This doesn't apply to just any and every law enforcement official in this state. It would only allow this authority or these powers to law enforcement officials whose primary function is to crack down on piracy, the piracy of movies, music, video, etc., in the state of California. Number two, the substantial state interest, I believe, is based on California being the world center for the industry itself, but not only the entertainment industry from a content perspective, but in fact the replicator industry as well. The replicator industry, most of the replicators that this bill would apply to are not just based in California, but in Southern California specifically.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Padilla, do you wish an additional close?
I ask her, I vote.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Berryhill. Blakesley. Calderon. No. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. No. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. Lamafa. No. Leno. Aye. Tedlu. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian. Steinberg. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Walters. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee. Aye.
Call the absent members.
Anderson. No. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Smidian.
No.
No. Steinberg.
Ayes 32, noes 6. The bill is passed. Members, that brings us to file item 147. Senator Dutton. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 724 by Senator Dutton, enacting to air pollution.
Mr. President and members, this bill actually very simply just does one thing, and that requires the California Air Resources Board to notify applicants for engine certifications within 30 days that their application is complete. There's been a problem in the past with untimely notifications. There is a 90-day process or time limit in here at this time. However, sometimes months go by before the applicant's actually getting notification as to the completeness of their file. This bill would ensure manufacturers know whether or not additional information is needed. We have not received any no votes, and it has no state cost. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Members, is there any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call on this item? There appears to be no objection. Without objection, ayes 38, noes 0. File item 148, Senator Padilla. Are you passed? Thank you. File item 149, Senator Runner. 149, Senator Runner, not at her desk. File item 150, Senator Lowenthal. Senator Lowenthal, file item 150. Are you prepared to take this item up, sir? Pass. File item 151, Senator Ted Lieu. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 919 by Senator Lieu, enacting to school safety.
Thank you, Mr. President, Senators. There is a growing and troublesome problem occurring in our schools, and that is young children participating in what is called sexting. High school students and many middle school students have cell phones, and many of them bring them to school. And during some of these occasions, they send text messages to each other. Some of these messages are often sexual in nature and include photos, videos, and messages. Sexting is now a form of relationship currency for many young Californians, as many are pressured to send these images in order to get closer to the other person. This bill simply adds sexting to the list of actions that the school law enforcement partnership can work together on ways to curtail. It is a small step forward to address this problem. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Members, any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call on this item? Ayes 38, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 152. Senator Price as chair. Pass. File item 153. Senator Hernandez as chair. Pass. File item 154. Senator Yee. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 41 by Senator Yee, enacting to public health.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and Senators. This bill is about protecting the health of all Californians. This bill does, in fact, provide greater access to clean syringes for personal use. It sunsets a statewide authorization in 3 years, helps prevent the spread of AIDS, hepatitis B, C, and other costly blood-borne disease, and will save millions of dollars in health care. Wanted to thank all the senators, I think, who had some concerns, but at the end of the day, we all work together to try to get this bill out, and with that, urgent aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Calderon. Aye. Canella. No. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. No. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Tedlew. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. No. Runner. No. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. No. Wolk. Wright. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee, aye. Correa, no. Gaines, aye.
Ayes 24, noes 13. The bill is passed. Members, returning to a couple of items which we passed by a moment ago. File item 149, Senator Runner. File item 149, Senator Runner. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 908 by Senator Runner, enacting to elections.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. Current law allows members of the military living outside of California or overseas, as well as Californians temporarily living overseas, to submit their absentee ballots by fax. SB 908 would simply give these voters the option of submitting their absentee ballots electronically by first requesting a vote by mail ballot via email, which can be done now, then printing the ballot and voting, then being able to scan that ballot back to the registrar's office, where their signatures will be verified, just like it's currently done with the vote by mail by fax. Let me make sure I'm clear that California already permits these voters to return their ballots by fax. Therefore, it only makes sense to give them additional options to scan and email their votes back. 14 other states allow their military personnel and those living overseas to return their ballots electronically. It will level the playing field by ensuring Californians, service members, those stationed out of state and country, while fighting to preserve our right to vote are given the same opportunity to have their votes counted. Ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Pavley on this item?
Yes, please. Just a question to the author. It was brought to my attention that the Secretary of State's office.
Senator Pavley, one moment, please.
Oh,
Senator Runner, are you prepared to accept a question from Senator
Yes.
Pavley? Please
Yes.
proceed, Senator.
Thank you. The Secretary of State's office might have some security concerns with going this direction. Maybe you could address that. I assume it came up in the policy committee hearings.
Right. The Secretary of State's office is just concerned. But again, they get the faxes. We think it's more efficient to actually see the scanned signature to be able to verify that than even the fax signature at times. So that was their discussion then. But we believe it's just as easy to check the signature by scanned.
Further debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Runner, would you like to close?
Ask for an aye vote.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. No. Corbett. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. No. Dutton. Emerson. Aye. Oh, Dutton, aye. Emerson. Evans. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. No. Harmon. Hernandez. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Lamalfa. No. Leno. Tedlu. Carolou. No. Lowenthal. Negrete McLeod. No. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Price. Rubio. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee, aye. Harmon, aye.
Mr. Secretary, please call the absent members.
Berryhill. Corbett. Emerson. Evans. Hernandez. Kehoe. Leno. Leno, no. Tedlu. Aye. Lowenthal. No. Pavley. Strickland. Wolk.
Mr. Secretary, please call the absent members.
Berryhill. Corbett. Aye. Corbett, no. Emerson. Evans. Evans, no. Hernandez. Kehoe. Pavley. No. Strickland.
Wolk. Ayes 23, noes 11. The bill is passed. Members, we are returning as well to file item 148, which we passed briefly earlier. Senator Padilla, I understand you're prepared to take this measure up at this time, yes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
We'll ask the Secretary to please read.
Senate Bill 879 by Senator Padilla, enacting to public utilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is one in a series of bills that have come by way of the Senate Energy, Utilities, and Communications Committee in response to the San Bruno tragedy of last fall. There was the first hearing in the wake of the disaster held here in the Capitol where it inspired this bill, among others. This bill, SB 879, would require that any rate-making proceeding in which the California Public Utilities Commission authorizes the gas corporation to recover expenses for the inspection, maintenance, or repair of a transmission pipeline, that the Commission require that gas utility to establish and maintain a one-way balancing account for the recovery of those expenses. And this bill is in direct response to a dynamic articulated by the PUC staff, where there had been cases of utilities going before the PUC for approval of rate recovery of several safety projects. And in future rate recovery cases or requests, it was found out that the project that had been previously approved had never actually been completed. So what we're trying to establish through this bill is some sort of trigger or check back with the commission, or at a minimum commission staff, where if the priorities or list of projects for utility changes, that there be at least some sort of mechanism for the PUC to be able to either monitor that, maybe concur with that, or in cases where there's not a concurrence, a forced resolution of that change of a list of projects. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Members, is there any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call on this item? Any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? If not, seeing and hearing none, ayes 38, forgive me. Ayes 38, no 0, the bill is passed. Members, returning to our place on file. File item 154, Senator Yee, are you prepared to take up this item? Forgive me, already done. File item 155, Senator Correa. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 285 by Senator Correa, enacting to massage therapy.
Mr. President,
Senator, one moment, please, Senator Correa. Senator Correa, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, this bill deals with human trafficking. It's one of the fastest growing criminal industries in the world. This bill specifically addresses the issue of fraudulent transcripts distributed by massage schools. Essentially, the bill criminalizes the conduct of these paper mill schools who distribute fraudulent transcripts in volume for compensation. Essentially, what these schools do is then they enable these massage fronts to spring up and deliver massages and other items beyond what is advertised. I ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist.
One moment.
Alquist, aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Lamalfa. Kehoe, aye. Lamalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Yee. Yee, aye. Wyland, aye. De Leon, aye.
Call the absent members.
Berryhill. Emerson.
Ayes 38, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 156, Senator Vargas. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 718 by Senator Vargas, enacting to public social services.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, today I would like to present Senate Bill 718. This bill would authorize a county to offer a confidential internet reporting system for mandated reporters to report suspected cases of elder abuse. The County of San Diego Adult Protective Services currently receives reports of suspected abuse from mandated reporters and the public on the same phone line. Due to the high volume of callers, there can be a lengthy wait before a call is answered. There is some concern that due to the long wait time, members of the community that are not required to report may hang up and not report the suspected abuse. leaving seniors and dependent adults at further risk. Allowing mandated reporters the option to file reports of suspected abuse through a secure electronic web referral system could reduce the number of telephone reports by half, which would in turn reduce the wait time for phone reporting and the number of abandoned calls. This bill has no known opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion, members? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Members, any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? In the absence of any objection, ayes 38, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 157, Senator Blakesley. Mr. Secretary, please read.
I'll be now.
Senate Bill 796 by Senator Blakely, enacting state hospitals.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB, what the heck are we doing? 796 deals with a problem we've all become increasingly aware of, certainly in our correctional facility, where contraband such as mobile phones can come in and be used for improper purposes. The same problem occurs in our state mental hospitals, and as we know in this body, currently 92% of those who are there are forensic commitments, many of whom have come directly from our prison system. We need to create a therapeutic environment in our state hospitals, and that is why many of these contraband items have been prohibited from being in these facilities. However, it is not illegal to bring them into the facility. This bill makes it a misdemeanor to bring cell phones, tobacco, and cash into state mental hospitals. It is sponsored by CSLEA and supported by AFSCME, and I ask for your aye vote.
Is there debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee, aye.
Ayes 38, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 158, Senator Correa. Senator Correa, not at his desk. File item 159, Senator Saulnier as chair. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 563 by the Committee on Transportation and Housing, enacting common interest developments.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill attempts to clarify some confusion on meetings for common interest development, particularly vis-a-vis the Internet. Requires that a general meeting shouldn't be held by the Internet unless a majority of the board members specify that it's emergency. We actually cut the period of time about some of the concerns from some of the prospective opponents from 4 days to 2 days to let emergency meetings be handled. We know a lot of these groups have to deal with the economic situation vis-a-vis short sales and things like that. And at the same time, we tried to clarify teleconferencing, making sure that all the members could be heard at a teleconference meeting. So all of these are meant to make it clearer for common interest developments and make it more efficient. I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Members, any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? There is. We will call the roll. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. I, Harmon. No. Hernandez. I, Huff. I, Kehoe. I, LaMalfa. I, Leno. I, Ted Lieu. I, Carol Lieu. I, Lowenthal. I, Nugutta McLeod. I, Padilla. I, Pavley. I, Price. I, Rubio. I, Runner. I, Semidian. Steinberg. I, Strickland. I, Vargas. I, Walters. I, Wolk. I, Wright. I, Wyland. I, Yee. Yee, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Berryhill. Emerson. Semidian.
Aye.
Semidian, aye.
Ayes 37, noes 1. The bill is passed. File item 160. Mr. Secretary, please read. File item 160, Senator Alquist. Pass. Senator Lowenthal, for what purpose do you rise? File item 161, Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 132 by Senator Lowenthal, enacting school facilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Senate Bill 132 requires that the Department of Education and the State Allocation Board revise state school facility construction regulations and their guidelines to ensure that they reflect the state's planning priorities. This bill will also require school districts to consider, and the operative word is just to consider, not to mandate, only to consider the state planning priorities when selecting a school site. The state's planning priorities are intended to promote equity, strengthen the economy, protect the environment, and promote public health and safety in the states. The state's planning priorities ask that land use decisions, 1, promote infill development and equity by rehabilitating, maintaining, and improving existing infrastructure, protect environmental and agricultural resources, and encourage efficient development patterns. States made a significant infrastructure investment in construction and modernization of school facilities. Members, over $35 billion in the last 10 years. And it seeks to ensure that this investment is consistent with other states' infrastructure goals. Members, this bill will not affect, and I repeat, it will not affect the district's eligibility for new construction funding. We will continue to build schools in growth areas where children live, as we should. What this bill does, members, is to encourage the building of neighborhood schools, whether in new growth areas or in existing infill areas. We want children walking and biking to school wherever possible. The Department of Education and the State Allocation Board say the regulatory review and revisions can be made with the existing resources they already have. SB 132 is a modest approach to bringing schools into the discussion on comprehensive planning. I ask for your support on SB 132.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Berryhill. Blakesley. Blakesley, aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. No. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Nugutta McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Runner. No. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. No. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee, aye. Anderson, no. Fuller, no.
Call the
Rubio,
absent
aye.
members. Call the absent members.
Berryhill, Canella, Emerson,
Ayes 26, noes 11. The bill is passed. File item 162, Senator Anderson. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 162 by Senator Anderson, enacting to gaming.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. This is a simple measure that does two things. It reconfigures the Gambling Policy Advisory Committee, and it requires it to meet at least twice a year. Second, it clarifies current law so it's clear that third-party professional players, bankers, are not under the control of the gaming establishment, but rather under the direct responsibility of the company that they are employed by. There is no opposition to this measure, and I ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist, aye. Anderson, aye. Berryhill, Blakesley, Calderon, Canella, Corbett, aye. Correa, aye. De Leon, aye. DeSaulnier, Dutton, aye. Emerson, Evans, aye. Fuller, aye. Gaines, aye. Hancock, aye. Harmon, aye. Hernandez, aye. Huff, aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa, aye. Leno, aye. Sedlew, aye. Carolou, aye. Lowenthal, aye. Negrete McLeod, aye. Padilla, aye. Pavley, aye. Price, aye. Rubio, aye. Runner, aye. Semidian, Steinberg, aye. Strickland, aye. Vargas, aye. Walters, aye. Wolk, aye. Wright, aye. Wyland, aye. Yee. Yee, aye. Canella, aye. Calderon, aye. Correa, we have as aye. Blakesley, aye.
Ayes 36, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 163, Senator Price. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 294 by Senator Price, enacting to public employees' retirement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Senate Bill 294 simply requires our state's public pension funds to adopt a 5-year strategic plan to expand the participation of emerging investment managers and to annually report on their progress. Senate Bill 294 is intended to encourage expanded opportunities for newer and smaller investment companies in the state procurement of financial services, including the management of assets managed by CalPERS and CalSTRS. 294 is also consistent with the policies and efforts of both pension funds to enhance transparency and expand emerging manager diversity. The bill is supported by CalPERS, CalSTRS. There's no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion, members? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Members, is there any objection? There is. Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist, aye. Anderson, Berryhill, Blakesley, no. Calderon, aye. Canella, no. Corbett, aye. Correa, De Leon, aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Dutton, Emerson, Evans, aye. Fuller, no. Gaines, Hancock, aye. Harmon, no. Hernandez, aye. Huff, no. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa, Leno, aye. Sedlew, aye. Carolou, aye. Lowenthal, aye. Negrete McLeod, aye. Padilla, aye. Pavley, aye. Price, aye. Rubio, Runner, no. Semidian,
Aye. Semidian, aye.
Semidian, aye. Steinberg, aye. Strickland, no. Vargas, aye. Walters, no. Wolk, I. Wright. I. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee, aye. Anderson, no. Rubio, aye. Dutton, no.
Ayes 24, noes 11. The bill is passed. Members, that brings us to file item 164, already considered and passed. File item 165, Senator Price, are you prepared to take this item up? Senator Price? Not at this time. File item 166, Senator Correa. Are you prepared to take up this item, Senator? Then let's ask the Secretary to please read.
Senate Bill 643 by Senator Correa, an act relating to administrative regulations.
Mr. President, Senator, Senate Bill 643 would enhance the administrative notice requirements relative to residential building standards. For the past 30 years, state agencies have been required to make a determination of economic impact when proposing regulations. This bill would simply require the agency to cite the estimated cost of compliance with the proposed regulation as part of the public notice. Ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Members, any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? Seeing and hearing none. Any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? Ayes 38, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 167, Senator Leno. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 897 by Senator Leno, an act relating to residential care facilities for the elderly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as you know, the home foreclosure crisis in California has negatively impacted families and communities throughout the state, continues to do so. There are over 170,000 seniors in California living in over 8,000 residential care facilities for the elderly who are also at risk of foreclosure. In fact, within the past year and a half, over 14 of these facilities have closed. There are probably many more, but we don't even know because the operators of these facilities have no requirement to report any information regarding their financial situations to the state. Worse than that, the seniors in these facilities, along with their families, also are not notified, and as a result, oftentimes are told in their very fragile medical and physical states that they have to move out immediately when the sheriff knocks on the door. So this bill will require that these residential care facilities for the elderly operators give notice to the state office of the long-term care ombudsman of specified events indicating their financial distress, and also give notice to community care licensing residents, and their legal representatives. There has been strong bipartisan support. There have been no oppositional votes. I would ask your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? Without objection, ayes 38, noes 0. The bill is passed. 168, Senator Calderon, are you prepared to take up this item? Pass. File item 169, Senator Strickland. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 177 by Senator Strickland, an act relating to health facilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 177 is an important district bill. This bill raises the bed limit for congregate living facilities that serve terminally ill patients in Santa Barbara County. Santa Barbara County currently has only one licensed facility, which has 6 beds. This bill will allow more beds within the county to provide the necessary service to my community. I urge for your aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Cannella. Aye. Corbett. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. I, Carol Lieu. Lowenthal. I, Negrete McLeod. I, Padilla. I, Pavley. I, Price. Rubio. I, Runner. I, Simitian.
Aye.
I, Steinberg. I, Strickland. I, Vargas. Walters. I, Wolk. I, Wright. I, Wyland. I, Yee. Yee, aye. Correa, aye.
Ayes 33, noes 0. The bill is passed. File item 170. Senator Alquist, are you prepared to take up this item? Pass. File item 171. Senator De Leon, are you prepared to take up this item? Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 427 by Senator De Leon, an act relating to ammunition and firearms.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, SB 427 is a consumer privacy and technical cleanup measure. SB 427 provides consumer privacy protections for ammunition purchases and provides technical cleanup to AB 962, measure that was signed into law in 2009. This cleanup language clarifies that data can be recorded electronically and creates privacy protection for this information. These privacy protections also ensure that the data is collected and kept in a manner that protects the consumer and prevents third-party access to this information without written consent. Members, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Debate or discussion? Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. No. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Calderon. Cannella. No. Corbett. Aye. Correa. No. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. No. Gaines. No. Hancock. Aye. Herman. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Runner. No. Simitian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Walters. No. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee, aye.
Call the absent members.
Berryhill. Calderon. Aye. Emerson. Negrete McLeod. Rubio. Vargas. Vargas, aye.
Ayes 22, noes 14. The bill is passed. Members, we're going to take up file item 172 by Senator Anderson, and then we will return on file to file item 80 for Senator Wolk, and that will complete our business on Senate third reading. At that time, we will return to motions and resolutions. That would be the appropriate time for in memoriams if there are any for today's session. Senator Anderson. Mr. Secretary, please read. File item 172.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 37 by Senator Anderson relative to the Border Patrol Agent Robert Rosas Memorial Highway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, SCR 37 designates a portion of State Highway Route 8 in San Diego County as Border Patrol Agent Robert W. Rosas Jr. Memorial Highway. Today we honor the life of the fallen Border Patrol officer who made the ultimate sacrifice in the defense of our country. Agent Rosas was 30 years old at the time of his death and leaves behind a wife, Rosalie, their two young children, Robert Matthew and Kayla Elisa. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Members, is there debate or discussion? debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, is there any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call? If not, ayes 38, noes 0. The resolution is adopted. Senator Wolk, file item 80. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 191 by the Committee on Governance and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. 191 is the first of the annual 3 validating acts that protect the integrity of the state and local bonds and boundary changes by curing any minor errors. At the request of the Department of Finance, the Assembly Local Government Committee amended 191 to delete references to redevelopment agencies. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on concurrence.
Debate or discussion? Senator Huff.
Yes, when this bill went to the Assembly, it received some changes which have reflected in the League of Cities coming out opposed unless amended. Typically, committee bills have bipartisan support. It's unusual for it to not have full support of the committee. But this, in putting some technical language in here, which is called the validating acts, it omits redevelopment agencies as those which would basically have their bonds protected in the same way as the others. So I would like to ask my Republican colleagues to lay off this because it does not, the amendments do not protect all the local government.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Harman.
Question of the presiding officer.
Thank you, Senator. Proceed.
The Republican analysis indicates that this is an urgency bill requiring 27 votes, but the board above you does not reflect that. I wonder which one is correct.
It is an urgency.
Senator Harman, I'm advised by I'm going to call this a point of parliamentary inquiry, and in response to your parliamentary inquiry, I'm going to inform the body that pursuant to the Senate desk, it is indeed an urgency item, notwithstanding the fact that it was previously not reflected on the screen. It is now reflected on the screen.
I thank you for your magical touch, Mr. Presiding.
Thank you for calling the matter to our attention. Do we have further debate or discussion? Senator Wolk, you may close.
I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. No. Berryhill. Blakesley. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Dutton. No. Emerson. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Leno. Aye. Tedlew. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Smidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Yee. Yee. Aye. Correa. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Canella. DeSaulnier. Aye. Emerson. Fuller. Gaines. Harmon. Huff. LaMalfa. Runner. Strickland. Walters. Wyland.
Ayes 25, noes 3. Senator Wolk moves a call. Ayes 25, noes 3 on the urgency. Ayes 25, noes 3 on concurrence. Adoption refused on the urgency. Without objection, reconsideration is granted. So ordered. Ayes 38, no 0. Members, we are just 5 minutes away from our 5:30 ending time, and we ought to be able to take up Senator Hancock's file item 274, which is ACR number 7. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 7 by Assemblymember Williams, enacting to the 23rd Annual State Scientist Day.
Thank you, Mr. President and Senators. ACR 7 declares May 18th, 2011 as the 23rd Annual State Scientist Day. It would behoove us, since this is the last day of May, to join the State Assembly in recognizing the work of California's nearly 3,000 professional scientists in over 30 state departments, working to protect the public from life-threatening diseases, safeguards for our wildlife, and our abundant national resources, and protecting our air and water from pollution. On May 18th, the state scientists hosted a wonderful State Scientist Day. You may have seen the school children all over the various booths and activities. It's a wonderful event. Please join me in recognizing May 18th, 2011 as Annual State Scientist Day as a tribute to the dedication and professionalism of the state scientists who work on our behalf every day. I ask for your aye vote.
Is there debate or discussion? Senator Anderson.
I had a quick question for the author.
Senator Hancock, are you amenable to a question from Senator Anderson?
Of course.
Is there a reason why we didn't include all scientists? Because they're all doing great work.
Not all scientists, it's all California state scientists.
Okay, thank you.
Further debate or discussion? Senator Hancock, would you like to close?
Ask for your aye vote.
Members, is there any objection to substituting the unanimous roll call on this item? There is. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Emerson. Dutton, aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Smidian.
Aye.
Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Wolk. Aye. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee, aye. Anderson, no.
Ayes 32, noes 2. The resolution is adopted. Members, we are returning now to motions and resolutions. Are there any items under motions and resolutions? Motions and resolutions. If not, if there is no other business, Senator Steinberg, the desk is clear. One moment, please. Senator Padilla, for what purpose do you rise?
For purposes of announcement.
Please proceed.
Just briefly, colleagues, no formal action, but many of us have come to know John Bryson over the years, and I'm pleased to announce that President Obama has appointed John Bryson as Commerce Secretary for the United States. While he is clearly subject to Senate confirmation, I just want to call attention to the fact that yet another prominent Californian has been selected for such an honor and service to the country, joining Secretary Panetta, Secretary Chu, Secretary Solis, and others. Proud that our President continues to look to California for vision and for leadership in some of the most pressing issues facing our country. We're proud of Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Steinberg, if there's no other business, the desk is clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me thank the members and, of course, the staff and the desk staff. Especially, we processed 67 bills today. It's a good day. Tomorrow morning at 8:30, there'll be a Democratic caucus in the Maddie Lounge. And we will begin session at 10 o'clock. I'd ask members to adjust their calendars. Will be flexible, but there's the possibility, after conferring with Senator Dutton, that we will stay tomorrow evening beyond 6 to 7 or 8 if we can, get more bills done than not. And dinner, of course. All right?
Thank you,
See you in the
Senator
morning. Thank you.
Steinberg. Members, the Senate will be in recess until 6 p.m., at which time the adjournment motion will be made. We will reconvene tomorrow, Wednesday, at 10 a.m., following a Democratic caucus at 8:30 a.m. Without objection, we stand in recess.